Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. It's our Leeds United weekly show with myself, Stephen Brown, and also Mr. Jason Booker. Jason, it has been far too long, my friend.
We were just saying before we came on. I think we've had a little bit of a breakdown since Wembley. We had the Wembley review, cried into his pillows for a day, and then we're just not seeing each other since. So yeah, it's good to be back, mate. It's I've been catching back up with content this week, having been away for a few days, and I'm excited. I can't help but feel quite excited and buoyed by the news that we've had so far, and the potential for what comes into the next season. Like I say, away from the Wembley day, I certainly see some positives while missing out on Premier League football next season with having another season in the Championship. So yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good.
You're doing good stuff. Deck, morning chaps, morning Deck. Guys, if you're watching on, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you're watching us on X, please do retweet us, like the video as well. And if you're listening again on Spotify later, leave us a rating and review. Well, I mean, it's funny because, chatting to Catherine Hanna on the channel the other day, and it's amazing with Leeds because the news cycle never stops, really. The season ends, and actually that's when it gets busy for Leeds normally, and so many things happening and so much intrigue, so much interest. The big news that broke probably about a week and a half ago now was the Red Bull investment, the Red Bull shirt sponsor. Obviously, immediately kind of sent shockwaves through the fan base, a big reaction, to say the least, a split reaction in some quarters. My personal take on it when it came through, when you hear the name Red Bull, yes, kind of what happened with them in Austria and Germany, and how they kind of changed the identity of traditional clubs. Well, certainly one traditional club. I don't know how traditional Leipzig were, but certainly the Salzburg. And you think, oh, okay. But then when you actually look at what the deal is, you look at what this means for the future. And if it's the difference between keeping an Archie Gray and losing an Archie Gray, then this is the kind of deal we have to make. And certainly the company itself is not. It made me chuckle because Dortmund have obviously got in bed with like a weapons manufacturer as a sponsor. A couple of days later, you think, well, that puts it a little bit in perspective, I think. But what did you make of the reaction to it and the deal itself, Jason?
I just think it's funny, if I'm honest. I just think it's really, really funny. I think there's a few things to kind of analyze and discuss and debate about it. I think first off is this kind of misconception of some of the facts when it comes to the other clubs and them as a brand within sport. The first thing is that they've been extremely successful. Extremely successful. You have seen some massive, and I mean massive, manufacturers of cars go into motorsport, Formula One in particular, and absolutely bombed. I'm looking at Jaguar, Toyota. When Toyota came, I'm a big F1 fan. When Toyota first came into the sport, they wanted to win. I think they won one race before they then eventually folded after about 15 years in the sport. Some massive, massive manufacturers. And Red Bull have been able to place themselves within that sport and then dominate and win countless times. The era through Sebastian Vettel, they won 4 straight. Obviously recently under Max Verstappen as their best driver. Like they're a serious outfit. The misconception with the two teams in Europe in Leipzig and Salzburg, I think, is funny. People getting really butthurt about Salzburg and the fact that they kind of got cut off as a club in 2015 and then reinvented. That's the way that it's kind of been branded. If you go back and have a look, Salzburg actually got renamed and rebranded previously to Red Bull, I think something like 4 times over the previous 30 years. So it weren't unknown to them. And sure, they did kind of cut off their history and start the club again. But given the set of circumstances around them, it's not the same as them trying to do it with us. And Leipzig, they took them from the 3rd division. It's like taking, I don't know, Swindon and taking them up to the Premier League and taking them into the Champions League. It's a hell of a story. Now, their kind of branch now into English football, as it currently stands, is nothing more than a minority stake in a shirt sponsor. They've never been in this country before. They've not been able to just go and drop into the Premier League. They've had to go down to the Championship. And we also know that they've been after or interested in Leeds United for over 10 years. So I think it can't be looked at as anything other than positive, Brownie, if I'm honest with you. It really can't. They're a massive worldwide brand, which we can now attach our club to. And if we do want to have genuine kind of expectations or a desire, if you like, to be at that top table again, we're going to have to sell a little bit of a soul. It's just, that's the way that modern day football is. So if it isn't Red Bull, as you've then put with Dortmund, it's going to be someone like that, or it'll be an oil arc, or it'll be somebody else with some sort of agenda that you don't really agree with. So for me, I think this is the least of the bad. It makes sense. Like, for me, this is not a problem. If anything, it's everything that we would want. Because I'm telling you, we're never going to see European football back at Ellen Road again without the investment that filthy rich companies or people bring. And they all come with some sort of caveat that you're not going to like. So the combination of the 49ers, who, by the way, are going to have people within that you wouldn't agree with where their money's come from either. Yeah, like they're not all, glorious NBA stars or film stars. There's going to be some dodgy, dirty money within that as well. The 49ers and Red Bull as a sponsor, I think is a fantastic potential for a massive powerhouse.
Yeah, well, this is the thing here, because we know ultimately with the 49ers and their long-term plans, it's an investment group. So it's buying in somewhere, increasing the value, and then exiting, having made a profit on your value. Now, we've said before, I think Parag Marate, for me, is just, I'm reassured every time I see him speak. I love how he goes about his business. I love how he's the figurehead and everything seems under control. But I think long term, they probably are looking for an exit. We know that and a company like Red Bull certainly have got the amount, they've got enough money to actually buy Leeds United. If it becomes this kind of, I don't know, close to £1 billion product in the Premier League, if it's getting in the Champions League or whatever, they've probably got the money to actually do that. And yeah, my thing with it is, because let's talk about some of the reaction, because obviously we saw some extreme kind of reactions and saying this is the beginning of the end and they've got a foot in the door and it's Red Bull Leeds and all this kind of thing. Part of me feels like, are we a fan base where, because we've had terrible ownership in the past, and are we always on the lookout for something to kick off about, or are we kind of so paranoid from what's happened in the past that actually we can't see, the wood for the trees with this one?
I think that's exactly what it is. I mean, just for a start, they're never going to get it through in this country to call us Red Bull Leeds.
No.
It's just not going to happen. The example of Hull's been put out there a lot. The Hull ownership wanted to change the name to Hull Tigers. That's their nickname. It's on their shirt, and they weren't even allowed to do that. So there's absolutely no way that you're going to change the heritage of a club like Leeds United to have it called Red Bull Leeds. It's just not going to happen. So let's not worry about that. Are they going to put the Bulls on the badge one day if they take over? Probably. Yeah. Am I that bothered? Not really. I'd rather them not touch the badge. Of course I would. But the facts are is that, again, I would much rather see this my club be successful. And the one thing that comes with Red Bull is success. It's as simple as that. They're not going to take us over to just have us straggling in mid-table, even in the Premier League. They're going to want us right at the top. They're going to want us in Champions League in front of as many eyes as possible. And then I suppose the argument comes that you would prefer to just challenge in the Championship instead, without any sort of selling your soul. I just don't know what people want, mate. I think that is exactly what it is. I think they will ultimately have branding everywhere. Would Ellen Road eventually be renamed? Probably. Because again, Newcastle did it. Other massive clubs have done it. It's quite common now that the naming rights of a stadium are sponsored, but it's still known as Ellen Road, or it'll always be known as Ellen Road. So I'm really not that concerned about either what it means now or what it means in the future. Now, obviously, the conversation might change in the future, and we find out that they are, vicious owners that are just going to rip the soul out. But I don't see that based on the information that we've got. And they'd have a much harder time with it, wouldn't they, Browney? I mean, Leeds fans are not the type of fans that are just going to roll over and be like, yeah, fine, you can rename this club Red Bull Leeds. It's just not going to happen.
No, and it's almost like a battle for football soul at the moment, isn't it? Really, across the board. You look at everything with Man City, everything that's happening in the Premier League, and I guess it's almost like an existential crisis, isn't it? It's like, what does your club mean to you? What is the identity of the club? What is Leeds United really, and what are the important parts that you're not willing to sign away, and what do you want to keep? If they start to rename the ground, and like you say, it'd always be Ellen Road. You'd always know it as Ellen Road. If they try and change the badge, what is that line before you feel like, oh, is this actually Leeds United anymore? But then, on the other hand, it's the fans, isn't it? Where the supporters of the club, the 40,000 or 36,000 that turn up every week, the millions around the world that kind of pour that emotional investment into the club. I don't see that going anywhere. That's that fervour that Leeds United has. Is that the soul of Leeds United? It's very complicated, isn't it? It's kind of it's all over the place.
You're absolutely spot on. It's that feeling that we all create. That we were talking about before we go on air. I won't repeat what we said before we went on air, but we're obsessed with our club. We're absolutely obsessed with our club, and as long as that doesn't change, then nothing else will ever change. It's still the same club and team and history. That's all still there. But if you're wanting to create a future which we believe we should be a part of, you have got no choice but to kind of go down some sort of route. I've seen people pushing back against that argument because of Tony Bloom at Brighton. He's an anomaly. That's a one-off. A local billionaire that bought the club. That isn't
not going to happen, is it?
Look at the rest of the top 10 in the division. All of them: Villa, Newcastle, Manchester United, Man City, all Arsenal, Liverpool. They are all exactly this kind of business proposition. And thankfully for Leeds United, we have enough of a pull in the fan base and population to be that attractive. Because I'm telling you, Red Bull would not get involved in another championship club. Not a single one. Or most of the bottom 10 of the Premier League, because the pull isn't there. No. So you have to ask yourself what you want, because if you're happy with what we had prior to Bielsa, then fine. We'll all just keep turning up at Ellen Road and seeing turgid football and 13th in the championship, or you have to get on board with this as a potential for some success.
I'll say it right here. I don't want to go back to a period of time supporting Leeds where it's 13th to 15th in the championship year in, year out, selling your best players, losing your young products, and just being on that cycle. But we can kind of just say that we're owned by some random bloke and who's not got enough money to really push us on, but just to kind of let things kind of go as they are.
Browney, this situation with like Archie Gray right now, as an example, right? Under Radrizzani, he showed a little bit of teeth when Calvin Phillips was under transfer rumours from Villa. He could have gone, and we got him on a new contract, and he stayed. But prior to that, you think of the days of Johnny Howson going to Norwich, Fabian Delph going to Aston Villa, Robert Snodgrass going to Norwich. This happened time and time again through ownerships that all they were bothered about were skimming bits off the top. Now, the facts are is now we are completely the opposite. This deal has almost on its own meant that we can keep Archie Gray this summer. That's how I see it, because I think we would have had to. I think we're probably going to get onto this, but we're probably going to end up seeing Cree and Nonto go, and that'll then bridge the gap in between the PNR problem that we've got. Without this Red Bull deal, we'd have had to sell one more big one. And that would have probably been Archie, because we would have driven a hard bargain. But that's what your ownership are now doing. They're doing everything they can to give us what we want on the pitch. And, Parag Morata has come out and also said that every bit of, money that's coming through this deal is going to be going back onto the pitch. Like, what are we complaining about?
What do we want? What do we want? Like, we've never had that.
This is what we've been desperate for years, mate. So yeah, I can't get on board with being negative about it. Look, could I be eating these words in 10 years? Possibly. There's a chance that might be the case. But there's no point worrying about that now, because it's going to happen anyway. Yeah, regardless. And I truly, truly believe that we have got the voice within this club to make sure that it doesn't go as south as some people are trying to make out like it might. I just don't see it.
No, I agree. And I think, by not getting promotion, we knew there was going to be a ripple effect, player sales, all that kind of stuff. And this deal being announced, a few days after that, and immediately it's putting cash into the club. And like you said, Parag says, straight back onto the pitch. We have just not seen that. We've not had that. So I agree wholeheartedly. A couple of comments I want to get to. Skip, I'm not too bothered with the little red colour or red name on the shirt or even renaming ER. It will always be known as ER to the fans. If we want progression, we need to sacrifice a little. Deck, however, he says, I can't agree, Jay. I see problems down the road. And Skip adds, he would draw the line at badge changing or changing the Leeds United name. Yeah, I mean, name. I mean, the thing with the badge is, the badge did change. It's changed several times in Leeds history. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's changed loads, hasn't it? And it's that thing again where, from a kind of marketing point of view, trying to sell your club abroad, they're trying to make these badges be as kind of easily identifiable across the globe, so you get it from that point of view. And I do feel like we've got the owners in place now that are wanting to they know they only get a return on this investment if they do the right things, i.e. putting a product on the pitch that wins. Yeah. That is the only thing that's gonna matter, really.
100%. I think you make a great point with the badge changing over the years, because the facts are is that your club is identified, like you said earlier, with the fans and the feeling and the culture that you create. Even if it's a Stoke, nobody wants to play at Stoke on a Wednesday night and all that kind of stuff. Like, that is what creates the club, not the badge or the other accessories that kind of come with it. And do you reckon that the club today is what the fans of 50 years ago felt it was? Probably not. And they probably would have squirmed at some of the stuff that's happened over the last God knows how many years. When we were buying Rio Ferdinand as an example. Like, I personally just think we kind of look for reasons to be upset at times. And I just can't get on board with being upset about this in the slightest, mate. I think it's a great thing for Leeds United's future. And I'm just hoping that we go from strength to strength with this, because for me, I want to see us win. I want to see us win stuff.
Same. No, same. That's what I harbour ambition for, is to win, compete, be at the right end of the table, to be, in Europe again, that kind of thing. And the thing is, and you've said it there, in 10 years, you might look back and go, oh yeah, it didn't work out or whatever. And yes, I think we're all going to have that little voice in his head that might go, yeah, we don't know what this is going to turn out. But if you think I'm going to sit around all day, wanting to protest against something that's not even happened yet or may never happen, or, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to waste the energy or time.
Look at some of the people that we've put support in the past.
Yeah.
And then ended up having to, get rid of GFH, Chelino. Like, I mean, come on, guys. Like, and right now, this is only a sponsor show. They've bought a minority stake in the club as well. But that's not a bad thing. Like I say, look at the success.
Yeah.
Look at the success of that company and what they've done in sport most predominantly, I just think it's, like I say, I think it's a good thing. Do I want it on the badge? Not really. But I won't be devastated by that. The only thing that would really irritate me is the name. I wouldn't want that, but I don't see any pathway to that happening.
No, absolutely not. And I think they you would think they've done their due diligence on the fan
Yeah.
base and the fact that that will not fly.
There'd be
This
a
fan
meltdown,
base
mate. There'd
would.
be an absolute meltdown.
Yeah, we're a crazy fan base. There's
Yeah.
just absolutely
Oh,
no way.
can you imagine the scenes outside Ellen Road? You'd literally be hounded out. It'd be chaos. It'd be chaos, mate. It won't happen. It won't happen. And I know people might be upset when the stadium eventually sells the naming rights. That's gonna happen. That is gonna happen. I'm telling you now, that is gonna happen.
We gotta get this deck. You sound like a man who's just had a crate of free Red Bull delivered to his house, Jay.
I mean, while I've been on stream, a friend who sometimes watches has messaged me something. I don't really want to say it out loud because it's funny, but yeah, they've certainly Red Bull's going to be everywhere before too long. But
yeah.
So what? So what? I mean, the stadium's covered in sponsors now anyway, whether it be Boost or Box
Flamingo Land.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah,
who cares? Give me the money. Like we've been given the same amount through this sponsorship deal that Man City have got for theirs. Like that's the most in this country, in the whole country. Like no problem for me. Give me the money. Right? Give me the money.
Good stuff. Okay, well, the other breaking news was announced yesterday. It was the retained list, who's staying, who's going, from contracts expiring and whatnot, as we try and shape the squad going forward to the start of the new championship season. The season where really expectations are through the roof, I would say. My expectations are through the roof. I just see no excuse. I'm sorry, Daniel Farker, but there is literally no excuse. Now it has to be, for me, automatic promotion, and that is just it. There's no other club in the Championship that has got this kind of level of backing financially, and just the pure talent alone, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. But yeah, the retained list then, so kind of looking through some of them, some of the notable ones. Sam Byram getting a new extension for me. Rock solid that. Why wouldn't you? I thought we got a good number of appearances out of him last season. I thought there were times when we really needed Sam. So I'm happy to see that one. What about yourself, Jess?
Yeah, we're going to get on to a couple of the others in a bit, but I think it's very similar to the ethos of the retained list. You need a squad. You need a squad, Brownie. And you know the facts is that Sam will be on next to nothing in the perspectives of a professional footballer. I think he's on about $7.5 a week, which is it's nothing. It's peanuts. It's proper. You know, it really is peanuts at this level. And you know, he can fill in at right back, left back. He can actually play centre back as well. His experience, he knows the club. And that is important, especially in a time where we are losing others that have now gone. You know, most of the Bielsa gang are now gone. That list there, you can see Dallas and Ayling. Dallas might still be around the club in some capacity. We don't know as of yet, but you know, more and more of these kind of experienced leaders are leaving. For me, Sam Byram, he deserves it for his performances on the pitch. If we were in the Premier League, I'd probably say, you know, he'd have moved on, I would imagine.
Would have been a different list, wouldn't it? In the Premier, you can imagine if we'd have got promotion, that list would have been very different, I reckon.
Yeah, 100%. And the other name there that you obviously can see that has spiked some discussion is Cody Drameh. But the long and short of that looks as if it's simply down to making sure that we get the compensation that we are going to be due, simply because when you sign a player under the age of 24 on a free transfer, you're due compensation. So if he leaves on a free transfer because he chooses to reject this contract, we will then get a fee, a tribunal for that, or agreed between the two clubs. Very similar to when we signed Cody Drameh, actually. We did exactly the same with Fulham. So yeah, I don't think that is anything other than making sure we get a nominal fee. I don't think it'll be a lot, but I think it'll be.
Could you see him come back in the first team squad?
No, I think given what happened to him at the beginning of last season, I don't think there's a route back in. He then goes to Birmingham and gets relegated. I actually don't think he's that great.
Yeah.
I used to think he was
We
potentially
used to think you were the answer.
when he was coming through in the 23s, and I've said this before and I'll openly say it again, he was the best in the whole group. And I'm talking the group that had Sam Greenwood, Joe Gellart, Chris Somerville, Cody Drameh, Charlie Cresswell was in that group as well. He was the best. He was, for me, the standout player. So I totally understood the clamour for getting him in and around the first team, especially when we were struggling for fullbacks. You know, when Ayling was injured and Drameh still wasn't playing, I did not understand it at all. But Bielsa clearly saw what we've then gone on to see. I think defensively, he's very, very sketchy. Going forward, he's very, very good. And I just think he gets too exposed going the other way, unfortunately, for Cody. But, you know, I'm sure he'll go on to have a good Football League career because I do think he's got ability. Like I said, I was blown away by him when I first started to see him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see a pathway for him back in, mate, if I'm honest.
No. A couple of others then are getting released. Lewis Bate never really worked for him at Leeds. I really like Lewis Bate as a player. Every time I've seen him, I thought he's very tidy, but I don't know. He's just never really been given that much of an opportunity. Is it size, do you think? I mean, what's I don't know. It's a tricky one, isn't it? But he's someone who looks to have so much footballing ability.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I don't know, because again, I would have absolutely banked on Lewis Bate being a success at Championship level. I think as a deep lying playmaker, I think he's an excellent passer of the ball. He picks up really good areas. He's tight space kind of control is excellent. You know, we saw him beginning of last season in the cup, and he looked good. He managed to work his way into the Premier League starting lineup at the end of season one under Marsh. Yeah. It was too soon for him, but he was clearly in and around it. Chelsea captain. You know, we really went out and went for him when we got him. He was a big part of Chelsea's under 21s at the time. So yeah, it's a strange one, and I would not be surprised in the slightest that come the age of 25, 26 he's back in the Premier League. I won't be surprised at all. Or he'll end up having a very, very successful career at the top end of the Championship. I can totally see that. He reminds me of an Adam Forshaw without injuries. So maybe he's just not quite got the stature and the build to get around the pitch, but technically he's very good. And whoever signs him, because I think he'll end up in League One this season, I'll get a top player. They'll get a top player.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. I mean, I remember seeing him in the pre-season friendly this season, and I think it was against Man United, and he just looked so good. He just it did. And then like in the cup, like you say, it's strange how it works out, isn't it? When you see a player and you just think, just for whatever reason, it just doesn't happen for them. A couple of the notable ones. I mean, Ian Poveda, we knew, obviously he's going there as well. Bit of an interesting one, Poveda, wasn't he? He showed kind of he was on the kind of fringes, wasn't he, of the team for a while this season?
Yeah. Just when we were struggling for numbers, he was certainly in and around. I think there's a player in Poveda. I don't think he'll ever be at the levels of a Dan James, Nonto, Somerville, and what we're going to need to progress on. But they really like him at Sheffield Wednesday, and it was a big part of keeping them up. He had injury problems, and he's always had injury problems. Injury problems have always kind of hampered his progression, I think, Poveda, along with a bit of attitude problems. He had a really bad injury at Blackburn too, that kept him out for a period of time. But again, I would imagine that we'll see him pop up somewhere in the Championship. He'd be a fantastic signing for like a Huddersfield or a Birmingham that have just got relegated, that really wanted to make a statement in League One. Give him a 4-year deal. Look, come build some roots. We'll build a team around you even. He has got serious ability. I think coming off the right onto his left foot is a player. Yeah, he's a player.
Yeah, absolutely. The other one that caused a bit of a storm was the extending contracts potentially of Liam Cooper and Jamie Shackleton. I do think it would have been a different story if we'd have been in the Premier League. Jamie Shack, obviously, I mean, a lot of people saying that, he barely plays and blah, 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 blah. I mean, what's been your take on that?
Mate, you're setting me up with this one because you know how I feel about it. I just
find the ball up and just
boom, we have a bit of this one. I honestly, it just makes me laugh. Like, you know, for years and years and years under Bielsa, we complained about squad depth. We were incensed on squad depth. You know, after so-and-so gets injured, we've got nobody. It's a 16-year-old that's on the bench, blah, 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 blah. And that's what it was. I mean, Archie Gray making his bench debut against Arsenal at 15 or whatever he was at the time. And then we offer Jamie Shackleton probably another year on $5,000 a week. He's on $5,000 a week, guys. Like, come on. Again, it's a spec in the football terms. What are we getting upset about? You know, he offers a position on the bench for a few minutes here or there where we desperately need him to fill in for injuries or suspension. I was having a debate with somebody on social media about him last night, and he was saying every time he plays, we play crap. Well, that's not true. He came on for Cody Drameh when we were away at Ipswich, when Drameh were all over the place. Jamie Shackleton came on. In that run, we ended up winning, I think it was 3 of the 6 games that started. 2 of them were the 3-0 at home to Watford, which we were brilliant, and the 4-1 at home to Huddersfield, in which we were brilliant. People want to rewrite history. He did play away at Southampton when we were poor, but we also had a weird backline that day and didn't play well as a team. It's not down to Jamie Shackleton. Me and you have openly said on this pod before, he never does anything bad and he never does anything good. He's just a steady Eddie player. His biggest problem is availability. He's often injured. Which is, sure, it's a problem. But again, if he's only a squad player, like I said to you before we came on, he's 4th choice fullback and 6th choice centre midfielder. What's the problem? I mean, if he's unavailable, then fine. He's unavailable for a place on the bench or in the reserves. Like I just don't get the clamour for having a problem with it. It's like people want to be upset by it, because if you don't have a Jamie Shackleton, you have a 17-year-old who isn't ready to then sat on the bench, who you can't use anyway. At least Jamie Shackleton knows what it takes to be a championship footballer. Just no problem for me, mate. No problem for me.
The thing with Shacks as well is one of them, you know, I feel sorry for him because every time there's been an opportunity for him, he seems to get an injury.
Yeah.
You think, oh, Jamie Shackleton's in line for a start here. He's got an injury. And it's like, you know, he just can't get that momentum going, can he, at all?
Well, he had that at the beginning of last season, because if you remember, there was a genuine conversation, should Jamie Shackleton be starting in the team? We were talking about it. He played well enough to kind of command a position. After the Huddersfield game, when we won 4-1, and we were very good that day, and he played very well that day as well. We were openly saying, should he play over Byram if they're both fit? So, like I said, people want to rewrite it as being something it's not. He's not a terrible footballer. He's an average championship player who loves Leeds United, and he loves Leeds United so much that he's happy to play 10 games a season or 10 appearances a season. We need some of them.
You do, yeah, absolutely. Elsewhere, Cooper, obviously another extension potentially as well, which I think, again, no problem with that. You know, it's depth at centre back. It might be your 4th choice centre back. You know, I hope we do a bit of business there anyway. Certainly, we need to. You know,
we need to.
But you know, again, no problem with that one, Jess.
No, I think he probably would have left with a great fanfare if we'd have gone promoted. I think given the fact that we're in another season of the Championship, I think what a 1-year deal on reduced terms, because he was on pretty good money, really, I think will probably be on offer. I don't know whether he'll accept it or not, if I'm honest. I think there'll be a part of Liam which will be thinking, I can play this year. You know, he could very well go to a number of Championship teams and play 30 games this year. So I think he'll have a decision to make, because this will probably be the last opportunity he has to go somewhere else and play, because then he's going to be 33, 34. He's going to be on the real down, you know, the downward trend by then. So it's going to be a decision for him, but I've got no problem with him staying around and being 4th choice centre back at all.
No, exactly. Elsewhere, the loanees returning to the parent clubs, Jadon Anthony, Connor Roberts, Joe Rodon. Now, let's have a little chat about that. And Joe Rodon, what's your instinct with what's going to happen there? Because it was exceptional last season for Leeds. It was a really top year from Rodon. I would love to have seen him. I know there's a clamour to sign him on a permanent. I would have taken another loan. You know, if we could have wangled another loan, why not? It frees up cash for other spots in the squad. Not a problem with that. Not desperate to sign him, permanently. What do you think is going to happen there? Because I'm seeing Ipswich linked, and there's a lot of kind of further. I think I don't know if he's actually done it, but he's rumoured to have signed. He's triggered an extension in his Spurs contract. Obviously, they want to protect it a little bit more. How do you see that one unfolding?
So yeah, Spurs have triggered the contract. They have an optional 1 year extension in his last year, which is what they've done. He's going into the last year, so he's now got 2 years left on the contract. It's normal. That they would do that to protect their asset and increase his value. I've heard rumours of around 7 million, which I think is pretty good value for him, if I'm honest.
Definitely.
I do think that he would pick Leeds in the Championship over Ipswich in the Premier League simply because of the Welsh lads and his year with us, and the opportunity to then build and potentially go up into the Premier League with Leeds. The likelihood is that Ipswich will go down this season, and that's not to throw shade. It's just the truth. They probably will. So I think I imagine we will see a loan with an obligation to buy, regardless of division. That's what I'm kind of expecting. I think we will sign him a loan again with a loan obligation, maybe of even a little bit more than what we would pay if we bought him now. So you might be talking 10, 12 million. But what that will then do is it'll free us up on an FFP basis for more spend this summer and in other positions, and it'll get us back Joe Rodon. I would be surprised if we don't get him back.
You don't want it to be a Kyle Bartley thing, do you, where it's like he has a really good year and then you just never see it. I spent the entire summer at that time like, why have we not signed Kyle Bartley? What's going on?
Yeah. I mean, obviously then we had the Ben White situation, but it's not the same as Ben White, because Ben White was a bit younger, a little bit more of a prospect. Brighton had made it very clear that there were a pathway with him into the first team. Spurs are not doing that. It's a very, very different circumstance situation. You know, and Ben White was priced out of that move. You know, Leeds placed a £30 million offer. Like, what more would you want them to do for a player that had never played at the top level before? So I didn't have a problem with how we dealt with that. I know a lot of Leeds fans did. They wanted us throwing 50 million at him and stuff. It's just stupid. Just seeing Skip there's put rumours circulating on Thursday that Newcastle are interested in running. I don't see it. I don't see him as a Champions League player or a player that is going to be fighting for a top 4 finish this season. That's where Newcastle are going to expect it to be. I just don't see it. Can't get in Spurs' side. Why would he go across to Newcastle, who are going to be in and around that same kind of ballpark? I think I like him, but I don't see many Premier League teams that would want him. Ipswich aside, right now, I think of the other teams that are in and around that area of the league: Southampton, Leicester, Everton, maybe, but they can't buy anybody because they've got not got a pot to piss in. So I think he'll come back, mate. I do. I have a. But if he doesn't, I have confidence in the club to find a replacement. You move on, don't you? So
yeah, they'll be working on a list. A couple of other ones.
I wouldn't want to be paying 15 million for him. I'm just going to say that now. Like, if it was a case of sign someone else or sign him for 15 million this summer, I think I would probably move on to other targets. I like him a lot, but I just don't think right now that would be a wise spend of 15 million quid.
That budget and what we can spend is going to be a fluid thing, isn't it? It's going to go up and down, isn't it, all summer? And that's the difficult predicament, isn't it? That's the difficult thing to work around, because you can't properly, if you commit 15 million to Joe Rodon at this stage of the transfer window, and all of a sudden Nonto doesn't get bought or something like, all these kind of things, it can really can impact it, can't it?
Centre back is absolutely pivotal for our recruitment this summer. It is, but 15 million worth of spend would be much better placed on a 10, and then 5 to 10 million, or maybe even 3 to 7 million spent on a centre back, because the value for attackers is way more than defenders. So you've got to be careful with how you spend if we are going to stick true to being within PNS this summer. So
yeah, exactly. And I think isn't there a discussion going on about changing the rules on that as well as the Premier League, but the Championship ones? I mean, if they give the green light to higher spending, then we're only going to be the winners from that. Really.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Jaden Anthony, Connor Roberts departed as well. Don't think we'll see either of those coming back.
I don't think so. I don't think Connor Roberts showed enough, if I'm honest, and I do think he had opportunities. He got injured at a bad time when I think he would have played a run of games on the back of that international break, I think it was. Actually, they probably ended up going into midfield. I like Connor in terms of what he kind of brought around the place. He said all the right things, and don't get me wrong, he had some good-ish performances, but I'm not overly concerned by him going. I think Burnley are saying that they want to play him, and which makes sense in the Championship, I guess. He's done it for them before. And we need to go out and sign a proper right back. You know, it is again a key area. We've got so many holes in this squad right now. We have. As for Jaden Anthony, I feel really sorry for him. If I'm honest, I feel really sorry for him because I think he showed himself to be a Premier League player. Not with Leeds, but with Bournemouth previously. And, you know, he started the season out last season as first choice at Bournemouth. He started 3 of the first 4 games. Sinistera comes in. He gets shunned out of the door into a situation where he weren't really needed. Unfortunately for him, I mean, I thought he might have pressed his way in. I think Stoke away, and it gets brought up all the time, but Stoke away absolutely killed him.
It's so harsh, isn't it? Because he'd been so good off the bench, hadn't he, to that point? And I was so buzzing for him, like, to be started. I thought, oh, great. Do you know what I mean?
That day, though. He was really bad. I mean, you go back and watch that game. I remember me and you talking about it. He couldn't even control the ball. Like, the ball was bouncing off him. Everything he did went wrong. He was awful. And I mean, Gruev weren't great either because that was Gruev's debut.
Yeah, that's right.
But Gruev built himself back in, and it's a bit of a different position, but it was just like Farker never trusted him again after that. It was Chris Somerville's got that position. That's it. You're on the bench. And it was the most used player off the bench in the whole division was Jaden Anthony. So, yeah, it was a tough one for him. I do feel sorry for him. I think he'll go on to have another loan or move to the Championship somewhere else this summer, unfortunately for him. Yeah, wish it had worked out better, but it just didn't.
No. Speaking of transfers, obviously the big rumour that caught light last week was Ilya Gruev and his exit, linked with, I think, Borussia Dortmund and a couple of other Bundesliga clubs as well.
Champions League finalist,
Yeah. But, you know, we signed him last year for about 5 million. Apparently there's rumours that we've set about a 15 million price tag for Gruev. So, you know, tripling his money. I mean, where do you stand on potentially losing Gruev? I mean, Farker obviously loves him. I was very impressed by his first season with Leeds. Maybe some holes in his game, but maybe that's more to do with who he was with in midfield. I'm not sure. I'm not so keen on this narrative that seems to be coming out in the fan base now, where it's like, oh, he's never that good anyway, or you know.
Oh, is that
oh, he wasn't that good. It's
like rewrite history again.
Yeah, rewrite history just to like soften the blow. But I mean, 15 million. Would you be happy with that? I mean, what's your kind of stance on the Gruev thing?
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to that position of what you've just said of like ruling him out to play, because I do think he's a very good defensive midfielder, but I would snap your hands off at 15 million quid. I'd snap your hands off at 12 million quid if I'm honest. Not because I don't rate him, just simply because I think he's his backup defensive midfielder. If Struijk was fit from January to the end of the season, Gruev would have been mainly on the bench, seeing minutes coming on to control games when we were winning. So I would 100%, especially given the P&S situation and what it would allow us to do somewhere else. Sell him for 10 to 15 million quid, double your money, treble your money, and go and sign Kenny McLean for a million quid. Get that experience that you so desperately needed. Kenny McLean might even be on a free transfer this summer, I don't know. But go and sign someone like him who can do that role just as well, that's happy to have minutes off the bench, that's going to be happy fighting for a position behind Ethan Ampadu, and go and put that money back into, like we said earlier, into the centre-backs where you know we are pretty desperate for reinforcements. So, yeah, that's my take on it, mate, because I think centre-back, we cannot, as great as Ampadu did this season, we cannot be going into this season with Pascal Struijk, who is going to miss 15, 20 games a season, because he always does. He's always injured. And Charlie Cresswell as his only centre-backs. That just can't happen. I mean, because I think Charlie will end up moving on. I think Charlie will go too. I think we've got one centre-back at the club in Pascal Struijk, who is injured. So yeah, that's what I would do, mate. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think ultimately, from kind of financial point of view as well, if you bought a player for that amount, you're selling him for that. It's just it's a bit of a no brainer. I think it's they must be working 24/7 with recruitment and everything, because I can't imagine how difficult it is to try and put these pieces of the jigsaw together. I think it's better than last year. I think it's a damn sight better than last year. I mean, we've got certain players that we don't even know what's going to happen. I mean, Brendan Aronson is kind of a huge kind of looming figure, really, because you're not going to make money on him. So are you going to sell him? Is he going to come back? Could he be the answer in the number 10? I know we spoke he's been better off the wing, but at championship level, could he be a difference maker for us? But when do you think it'll catch fire? When do you think those dominoes will start to fall? Are we talking probably another month? So
I think so. There's two things, isn't there? I mean, the window doesn't out and out open until July anyway. But that's when contracts kind of expire the 30th of June. But you've got the Euros. The Euros is a big problem because, I mean, we're not going to be in a pool where we're only signing internationals, but the Euros is quite a big tournament. Like, as an example, Scotland are involved. We'd be in for all of Scotland's players if we wanted them. You know what I mean? That kind. So there's going to be a certain amount of players that are not even available for contact. It's going to mean that the window.
Well, Max Ferber has said to his agent, hasn't he? Like, don't even talk to me about anything until after.
Yeah. Which is fair enough. Like, he's got a tournament to concentrate on. I totally understand it. But for Leeds United's perspective, we've now got to wait until middle of July. Like, you know what I mean? Because I think that, when's the group stage finish? End of June, maybe?
Yeah, so probably end of June, yeah.
You're definitely going to be looking as a minimum, absolute minimum, 3 to 4 weeks before stuff starts moving. And the season starts a month after that. So it is going to be, a quick turnaround. They are going to have to get moving. And I think it's really important that we're not in a situation come the first game of the season where we're like, our squad's not ready. Like, I can't take that this year. I don't think Daniel Farke will survive it. I saw somebody mention the other day on social media about last season start. It took us 4 games to get a win last season. I don't think he's got that. I'm not saying that he'd be sacked, but I think the pressure would be ramped up so much that come game 7 or 8, I think you're then talking about potentially moving him on. Next season, we have to win the league. There is absolutely no excuses.
No.
Burnley, and I'm not going to even clash Sheffield United. If Sheffield United do a madness and turn it round and come back all guns blazing, then fair enough. But I'm not even counting them in. Burnley and Luton are nowhere near Leicester and Southampton. No. Nowhere near. So we have got no excuse. We are the best prepared team with the best players in this division, with the best backing, and arguably the best manager. We have to win the league. And we need to almost be, 10 games in, 25 points, 26 points, them kind of levels. That's where I see as being. That's where we need to be.
I agree 100%. 100%. Skip asks here, do you think we need to bring a new number 1 keeper in, or strengthening the back line will hopefully help out Meslier? It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I think there's from kind of bits and pieces we've heard of Meslier before, I don't think he's happy as a number 2. He's not happy as a backup, but I don't know how much value he would have in the market now at the moment. And it's frustrating, especially when he was linked to tens of millions of pounds, moves away a couple of years ago or 3 years ago. Now it's, what would you get for him? And it's difficult, isn't it? Because, sometimes with Ilian, you think, I think he's going to be okay. I think he can do this. And then, you'll see him other times when it seems to get in a bad run. It's like, oh my God, he's not going to save anything.
He's just so young, isn't he? He's just so young. I mean, keepers don't hit the prime until 30, 31. So it's a tricky one. I mean, you're absolutely spot on. The end of season 1 of the Premier League, he would have commanded 30 to 40 million quid. When we finished 9th under Bielsa, Premier League, a season of Premier League behind him, because he was fantastic that season as well. I mean, some of the stops that he made that season were a joke. I think he would have gone for 30 to 35 million. I really do. Like, I think that he would have been valued that highly. I struggle to think that you'd get 10 million for him now. I really do. I think 5 to 7 million is what you'd be talking. And then how do you go out and replace that? Because you're almost better running the risk of him not being the best option and seeing his value increase again because he's nowhere near his prime. It's a real tricky one. It's a real I would be very happy to see him moved on and sign somebody with a little bit more steel, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's a tricky one. I mean, Victor Jansen's gone to Stoke for £1 million. I mean, I'd have just gone out and made that deal happen. But I mean, I was reading something the other day that Cal Darlow's on the same salary as Meslier in the Championship, and I was like, what on earth did we... I think we fully expected Meslier to go, and we signed Cal Darlow as the number one.
Yeah.
And then it never ended up.
No interest.
Yeah. Now we've got a situation where we've got two keepers getting first team wages. So what do you do? I think it will end up being just them two again. I do.
Yeah, I could see that. Scott, how much do you think Leeds could get for Joseph? It's probably an interesting discussion for Joseph to have with Farker. I think he'll be sitting down with Farker and saying, look, what am I going to get this season game-wise? Because I don't think there's any doubt that he will himself believe he's ready now for first team. And it's my frustration was the last 5 or 6 games of last season when it wasn't going well anyway. I think it could have been a nice little trial run to see how Joseph handles some more minutes, but we didn't get it. Now it feels like you're going into a summer where you've got Pirro, who doesn't really fit. You've got Joseph, who's an unknown. You've got Bamford, who is, we know, injury prone and everything like that. Do you really go out and splurge on another striker and throw another striker into that mix? I mean, that's pretty complicated, isn't it?
I think the number 9 spot is arguably one of the most kind of interesting situations to come out of this summer because we desperately need a number 9. We absolutely desperately need a number 9. We've seen that Pirro isn't it. We know that Bamford, can offer certain elements of it, but we still need somebody better. If we'd have had an Adam Armstrong this season, we'd have won the league comfortably. I feel almost certain of it. So, it's a real tricky one. I'm just going to throw one out there. I've seen it being mentioned earlier on last week, I think it was. Cameron Archer from Sheffield United is obviously the man that we wanted originally. I've seen there's been linked with him. I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm not saying that this will happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if Pirro moves on this summer. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
A little swap deal going on.
A little swap deal. What about it? At the end of the day, we're going to have money to lose. Yeah, it'd fit better. It would. And I think Sheffield United would be happy potentially taking off Cameron Archer's Premier League wages, getting some money for him, and then getting some sort of replacement in that might fit a little bit better. I could see that happening. I can imagine waking up one morning to see that Pirro's gone for 10 million, 12 million. We've taken a little loss on him or whatever, and he's moved on. Because I think Bamford's so tricky to move on. If it were me and I were the 49ers, I would just say to him, look, here's the rest of your contract. Go and find somewhere else to play. But the P&S attachments to that make it tricky. Could you loan him out? Well, who is going to pay 50% of his wages? Probably nobody in this country. So then it makes it almost, you might as well just have him sat on the bench. So it's a tricky one.
What I don't want to see next season, and it's going to immediately irritate me, is if Farker's trying to crowbar Pirro into a system that doesn't fit Pirro and doesn't fit us, but because you've spent this money and, the stubbornness, you're still going to try and hammer that nail in because it worked in one game against Norwich. I just can't get on board with that. And I think if Farker tries to go down that line and we still see that next season, I think he's in big, big trouble.
It'd fall on his sword, mate. It'd fall on his sword if that's what he does, because it will cost us. It will. I mean, it cost us last season and it'll carry on costing us, unfortunately. I like him. I just don't think we're ever going to fit a system around him that works because of the way that Daniel Farker sets up. Now, look, I've seen this mentioned a few times this week as well, in that we have played this season. Daniel Farker plays with 3 10s usually in that 4-2-3-1. This season, we've played with 2 wingers as 2 of the 10s. With Somerville and Nonto likely to go, will we sign 2 other 10s and then play 3 10s that then make it work for a Pirro? Maybe. Imagine 3 players like Buendia, Cantwell, Pablo Hernandez type, Samuel Sayers type, sliding balls through to him one-on-one with the keeper more often. And then all of a sudden you're looking at a 20-25 goal a season striker again. Maybe. I can't say that for definite, but something would have to change for that to work. And I just feel from what I've seen over the season of Pirro that he won't fit.
No, and it's testament actually to him, the fact that he's got so many goals for us this season when he just plainly didn't fit the system. I mean, if you look back at some of his goals from this season, there's best finisher in the squad, like we've said.
By a mile, mate. It's not even close.
Why are we not getting the best out of this? Why are we not? It's just, I
love watching him in front of goal. Like I said, I can only think of I think there was a chance away at Hull that he should have done better with, and then the chance against Coventry, which was a real big chance, it has to be said. But bear in mind, I think he'd come on and scored that day, or he definitely scored that day. I can't remember if he started or not. But he's just a killer finisher. I love watching him in front of goal. Both feet, really comfortable striking the ball, really cold in front of goal. I like him a lot. But I just don't think we play to him at all. I would not be surprised at all that he goes and moves to another championship team and gets 20 goals. It would not surprise me in the slightest.
And then we'll all be kicking ourselves then, won't we?
Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Why didn't we get it to work? Okay, well, we're going to wrap it up there. Hope that's whetted the appetite for some Leeds United content on the West Yorkshire Football Show. So much to get into. I've really enjoyed that. It's absolutely flown by, and obviously a lot to get into. There's going to be plenty of content going out on the channel. We're revving back up as we've had a little post-season break. We've got some England content on the way. There'll be some discussions, post-match reviews, all alike for that, plus all our club content as well. So if you've enjoyed the video, please do smash a like on it. Get us retweeted on Twitter or X. And if you listen on Spotify, please do leave us a rating and review as well. I've been Stephen Brown. With me has been Mr. Jason Booker. Jason, thank you very much, mate.
Thank you, mate. Glad to be back.
Yep, and we will see you again shortly. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.